Okay, so we are going to begin, and Enoch is going to begin as well on his paper here. And I did forget to mention this is a nice pencil sharpener for the Blackwing. Enoch has his pencil sharpener. That's nice to have the dual sharpener. I've used something similar as well. And one last thing, you know, for some of these pencils, I like to sharpen them with a razor knife, you know, with the razor knife, because a lot of times these will break your lead or your pencil lead. So, you know, it's not so kid friendly, but you know, you could sharpen these for your children if needed. But this is one way that I achieve this, is with a razor knife. So let's begin, and what we're going to do is we'll do 12 values for now, because we're going to go with what Enoch has here. And so Enoch, what you're going to do is you're going to make, you know, you can just take maybe your 2B and draw 12 squares, okay? What we're going to do is we're just going to see how these pencils work, right? And the gradient is meant to be slight, you know, it's made to build. And so here I've got my HB. Yeah. And you've got your B. And when you get into the B, you can really feel how much softer they become. Yeah? I can push a little bit harder here, get a little bit darker. See how that's so much softer? Can you feel that? Where are you at? So you're at the H. I want you to push a little bit harder on this, okay? Give it a little bit more force there. Because remember, the idea is to build. So from light, and you want to consistently get darker, yeah? And then now we've got 2B, and these really begin to feel much softer. Here we are, 6B. 6B is starting to get pretty dark. You can really go pretty dark with it. See that? Pretty dark. So what we're doing here, we're just getting a feel for these different densities here, different hardnesses of graphite. This is your 7B that I'm doing here. And this is 8B. And that is getting pretty dark. Look at that. Here's this. You can see we've got a nice little gradient here, and it's subtle. It's subtle. It's supposed to be subtle. It's supposed to be very slight until you get from there to here, and you can really feel the difference of it. Let's wait on Enoch. How are you doing? Yeah, that's looking good. Look at that. Good job. Let's see that. So look at Enoch. He did a good job. See that? Nice consistent gradient. Nice consistent value. Okay? So this is what you're looking for when you have the egg. You can see all of these values from here, you'll have your point where your highlight is, like here, and you'll have these values all the way across, and even unto where you get into your shadow underneath, you'll get to points of blackness, darkness in there. And so this is what we're going to be learning about, right? Is how to use this to achieve this, so that it looks like you have an egg sitting on a piece of paper. Yeah? So next, what I'd like us to do is practice combining these, but in one form. Okay, so we're going to go from light to dark within one big square. Okay, so once again, we'll go back to our 6H. That's your 6H. So you're going to start in the top left corner, and then we're going to come all the way to the bottom right corner, and we're going to make the bottom right corner as dark as possible, and the top left corner as light as possible. Yeah? So we'll do a little bit of this 6H, okay? And you can switch whenever you want. You go through them however you'd like. And then I'll do one. Try not to use your eraser though. Don't use your eraser. This is just learning pressure, learning how to apply and utilize the hardness of the lead that you have, the hardness of this pencil. So we're going to try not to erase as much as possible, okay? So there I have my 6H. Then I think I have my 4H here. Okay. So I'm going to get a little bit darker. I'm going to blend it a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And you can overlap them so that you can make a nice gradient. There are different methods where you can cross and where you can, swirl to try to achieve what you want. And what we are trying to achieve right now is a nice gradient. And then I'll show you a little secret maybe in the end. We can look at the shading stump just to kind of see what it does. Okay, this is the 2H I have here. Enoch is on his 2H as well. Now I feel tempted to want to shade this sometimes with my hand or try to manipulate it, but we're just going to use the pencils right now, okay? Here I have my H. So again, you need to learn how to apply pressure, how to use the tool that you have, how to use, that's why they make them in all of these varying hardnesses, is so that you can utilize them and do what they're made to do. And this will save you time in the long run and save you erasing too much. You can erase too much and you can ruin your paper. You can get smudges you don't want. Erasing is good. It's a tool, but you need to know how and when to use it as well. Yeah, so I'm just kind of going back over some of these areas and smoothing them out as we go. So we're on B. This is B, and we're starting to get a little softer. So I'm just doing this, try to give y'all some example as well, and see what these things can look like, should look like, hopefully. So that's 3B. And again, some of these exercises may seem tedious or time consuming. It just depends on how well you want to learn to draw and paint. A good foundation is important when you are going to build upon something. And so this is just the foundation of drawing, the foundation of art. Whether you want to do abstract art, whether you want to do realism, hyperrealism, impressionism, whatever you want to do, a good understanding of the fundamentals of how light and shadow work, how tone works, is all very important. You need to understand the very foundations of art. And so that's what we're learning right now. This is what children need to learn first. It doesn't matter what they end up doing with their art. This is the foundation that they need. So it may seem tedious, but it is valuable. It is very valuable that they would learn how to do these things. So there's my gradient. Enoch's working. He's getting it. His square is bigger than mine, so. But it's good. He's doing good. He's got a nice light value there. A nice middle range here. And he's on 6B. One thing that's good to notice here, let me see this, is, your pencil, it gets like an edge. It gets like a sideways edge here. So you can rotate it as you draw. And so, for example, if he's just grinding away on the smooth end, but he wants it a little bit darker, he can turn it, and he begins to get a little bit darker still. So let's let him finish. Here's my gradient. So we've got all the way from 6H, I think is where we started, down to 8B. And so it's nice to use a brush to wipe off this instead of blowing on it. Sometimes I'm still in the habit of blowing on it, but sometimes you end up spitting on your paper. So it's nice to have a brush. Make sure that you don't put your hand on there, because then, so here's a little secret here. You don't want to put your hand. See, Enoch was resting his hand there, and now his hand's covered with the lead. And so everywhere he touches, he's going to have, so be careful with that. You try to keep it clean, especially if you want to work on another part of the paper, you want to keep it clean. Sometimes you can use another piece of paper, like this, and you can, if you have to touch it, you can come like this, and then you can draw, you can wear gloves if you want. You can use wax paper. That's really nice. Wax paper is nice to put down. I don't have any wax paper with me, or just standard printer paper, be a nice cover, to put your hand, rest your hand. You don't typically need to, if you're right-handed, this is really where you're going to get in trouble resting. So you want to put something down to cover it while you do that. Your left hand, you shouldn't really need to put it here. Also, if while he's finishing up here, you can always tape, the little blue painter's tape. You can tape your paper down so you don't have to always hold it. It can be there fixed. Okay, so here's Enoch. He's finishing up here. Good job. Good job. Now, my lights are a little lighter than his. He got into smudging his a little bit. But that's okay. But he just needs it a little bit lighter to really show a little bit better gradient. But it's pretty good, and it's close to his gradient here. It's pretty close. So he didn't do a bad job by any means, and it's a good gradient, dark to light. The only thing that he would want to work on is maybe his control. Now, if you have a good 10H like I've got here, maybe that would have added, some hardness. It'll make things a little easier at times, where you can push a little harder, and you don't get quite as much darkness there. Okay, so before we actually get into the egg, I did want to show you a little bit about this shading stump. It's still really nice. It's nice to use. So I want to show you what it does. This one's not too dirty. So I'm just gonna kind of give you a bit of a lesson. What you'll find when you use your shading stump, sometimes your darks will actually get a little bit lighter. And so sometimes you'll have to go back over them to make it as dark as you want it, yeah? But what this is doing is it's going to greatly smooth out your graphite, yeah? It's going to give you the ability to make a gradient at times even without any lead down or graphite down. And so it's just a quick display of what you can do with this. And it can give a smoother feel very quickly. So that gives a nicer, smoother feel. And you know, if I needed to remove some things, I mean, I can use an eraser, you know, to kind of lift up a little bit of the tone that I want. You know, that's a very light lifting of some of the graphite here. And like if I added a little too much there, and if I want a little bit more, you know, if it's not right where I want it, you know, maybe I come back in with the 7B and I layer it on a little bit, okay? Because now you're really layering on top of it. It's really added, really pressed that graphite into your paper, and it's really formed quite a seal, a layer. And you can go on top of that layer, and you'll feel the difference when you do. And so, you know, it's much more smooth. You know, you can feel how smooth that is. You know, you've still got your dark, but here you've kind of got an awkward line, you know, that isn't as smooth. So I may want to like come in and try to work that out a little bit, you know. See what I can do. Yeah. So anyways, so there you go. So that's kind of somewhat how you can use the shading stump. Now, one more trick, in case you ever wonder, like, because once it gets real black, it becomes less effectual for certain things. So if you ever want to clean it, you can use sandpaper and just do that. And it will keep it nice and smooth, but it'll keep the teeth that it needs on the tool here on the shading stump. And so there you have it. You see how that got back down to kind of where you want it. You know, you can go as far as you want. You can even reshape this thing if you need to. If you don't like the shape, you can reshape it with sandpaper. There you go. So that's that, okay? So then what we want to do, where we want to go from here, is we want to apply what we're learning here with what we see here in the egg.